So, when we are using functions, you may have already seen that we define, first things first, we have to define our function. And then we need to give our function a name. So in this case, I'm going to be making a calculator today. So I'm going to call my function calculator. Nice and simple. And then we always finish it off with brackets and a colon, right? And then obviously we can type whatever we'd like in our function. So if I wanted to have my user input two numbers from the keyboard, once I do num1 equals input, enter num1. And then for num2, I do the same thing. So I'll just copy and paste this to save the typing. And then num3 in my calculator could just be these added together. So I've made two variables and I'm adding them together, and then I'm printing the result. To then see what happened, so then to run my function, I need to call it. So this is us defining the function. We're putting in the code that we want the function to run, and then we're calling our function to actually run it. So if I run that, it will ask me for two numbers. So my first number is 1, my second number is 2, and it's given me the answer 3. However, if I wanted to then use whatever, so this is giving me the number 3. So say I wanted to use the answer from my calculator later. Maybe I'd want to store it in a variable. The problem with that is when you print something in a function, it only prints it out. It doesn't actually store the value that you've printed with any properties. So if I would save that in a variable, for example, num, and then I attempted to print num, there would be nothing inside it. None. However, instead I can use return, which will let me return the value with all of its properties. So let me just copy in this. But instead we use return. Now when I print num, it will contain the value of my function, 3. But what if I don't always want to have to input the numbers? What if I want to use my calculator lots of times? I want to refer to it when so say I've got a massive document with loads of code and I've made this calculator that I'm going to use all the time, and I want to just quickly be able to find out answers. Well, that's when we get to use parameters. So again, we can define calculator, but instead of having input functions, I'm going to use parameters instead. So the way I go about that is I type my parameters inside the bracket. So you can have 1, 2, I can put as many parameters in here as I like. So then in my function, I can simply use these parameters as if they were variables. So I can say num3 and then when I call my function, I actually put the numbers in that I want to do. But the nice thing about this is I can do it as many times as I want. So 2 and 2. So if I run that, it's only giving me the second one because I've returned. But if I want it to print all of the answers out at once, I can actually put a print statement round my function call. So we've got the answer 3 and 4. And I can do this as many times as I want. So going back to returning and printing. So the answer from calculator, because we are using the return, actually has the properties of a number. So in this case, it's an actual integer. Whereas if we change this to print, it would have the property none. I hope that's helpful.